Welcome, gorgeous souls, to the I Do Me podcast. I'm Martina, and we are flipping here the script on what authentic living really looks like. We are diving into the struggle of staying true to yourself in a world obsessed with polished facades. Get ready for tips and tools to navigate relationships with more grace and a lot less bullshit. Expect no nonsense conversations that will help you mind your own business and live more authentically. Let's yank that stick out of our collective asses and power up our games. This is the I Do Me podcast, and let's get that rolling. So today's episode is definitely going to hit differently. We are tackling a question that so many of us, me, my clients, I'm sure some of you in my audience, have wrestled with. The question is, why does being real feel so risky when the world is pedestaling politeness? Why does speaking your truth feel like you're stepping onto a tightrope where you could lose your balance any time? Well, in a world where you are conditioned to keep the peace and not by any means ruffle any feathers, being unapologetically real can seem like the ultimate rebellion. How scary. And you know what? Sometimes this is it. It is. And here's the tea. There is a real cost of you holding back, of sugarcoating your truth and saying that everything is okay or fine when it's anything but fine. And today we're diving deep into the tension between authenticity and politeness. So if you've ever found yourself swallowing your truth to keep the peace, or you felt this damn knot in your stomach when you smiled through your gritted teeth, you are definitely in the right place. So let's get into it. It's time to get unapologetically real. So, the pressure of politeness. Why do we hold back? Why is it also so damn difficult to just say what we think and feel? So let's start by acknowledging something that we usually don't question. So why is there so much pressure to be polite? So, well, it turns out it's not just about being nice or following social norms. This is deeply wired into you. I did some research and I found that evolutionary psychologists say our ancestors depended on social harmony for survival. I know that notion might not be totally new to you, yet it's still important to bring this into today's episode. Back in the day, you know, those cave days, if you were not liked or accepted by your tribe, you were definitely cast out. And spoiler alert here, being left alone in the wilderness didn't just make things uncomfortable, it was often, or most likely, your death sentence. So that is why we have evolved with deep-rooted fear of rejection. We are avoiding rejection by all means. So that's why when there is conflict, this makes you anxious and you default to being polite, to gloss over things, to avoid things, to pretend everything is cool when it's absolutely not. And even if that all means we are betraying what you really think or feel. And psychologist Dr. Guy Winch explains that this very fear of social rejection triggers the same part of the brain that the physical pain does. So basically, it's the same trigger. Isn't that interesting? And that is why the threat of rejection feels so damn real to us. And here's the problem. This same survival instinct where your brain kept you safe from predators and protected you once is now actually keeping you from showing up authentically. So it's the same damn thing. So you think being polite will make people like you, but as psychologist and researcher Dr. Susan David says in her book Emotional Agility, Over time, constantly biting your tongue and ignoring your needs stifle your growth and chips away at your self-worth. And I do think that we have to build on our self-worth because growing up, social conditioning actually took so much away from us. And that means politeness can slowly become a betrayal of your own soul. So, authenticity feels damn uncomfortable, and that is absolutely 100% normal. The problem is that most of us think that because something feels uncomfortable, it means it's not right, it's not okay. And that's not true. So, being authentic doesn't feel always good because we have been so conditioned to think that vulnerability equals weakness. So, Dr. Brené Brown, our queen of vulnerability research says that authenticity is a collection of choices that you have to make every single day. And that's the tricky part with authenticity. It's a choice every day that you have to make. So it's about the choice that you show up and be and be real, and the choice to be honest, the choice to be true to yourself, to be also truly seen by others. And that choice takes courage. And every situation is differently. Every social situation is very often differently. So, and the question rises, why does it actually feel so damn scary? And that is because it opens you up. Being authentic opens you up to rejection. And our brains are so hardwired to avoid rejection at all costs. So when you speak your truth, you're triggering your very amygdala. And the amygdala, as I've mentioned in many other previous podcast episodes, is the fear center of your brain. And this is the same response that would kick in if you were to face a lion, or here in the US, for example, if I go for a hike and meet a bear. So, but here's a catch, because this discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong. In a social interaction, it just means that you are on the edge of your growth, because change doesn't feel easy, but that's also how you know it's working. So when you feel discomfort by speaking your truth, saying what you want to say, it makes you feel uncomfortable in the beginning. But I promise you, it will not last. It will not stay. Over time, by expressing yourself more authentically, you will realize it feels so damn good, because it's not this contraction of your soul, this contraction of your body where you know, like, I haven't said what I actually wanted to say. And then you avoid those shame spirals where you feel like that you are weak, that you don't deserve to actually speak the truth because you just, can't go about it. So I can really guarantee you, if you meet a bear in the wilderness, that discomfort really saves you, because your instincts will kick in and you know what you will have to do. And in a social interaction, when you feel discomfort, it's not the same thing. Your life is mostly, and I hope, not at danger. So 90% of your time when you have a social interaction and you speak your truth, you feel discomfort, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. And again, people may not always like what you have to say, but those who really matter in your life will respect you for this. When you start to feel that fear creeping in, remember one thing: discomfort is just growing pains in disguise. It's nothing else than this. And that is really important. And that's why I'm saying it again. Discomfort is just growing pains in disguise. Okay? So the cost of sugarcoating, and we are all so perfectly conditioned to sugarcoat things. So what you are sacrificing by being polite. So let's talk about it. Sugarcoating the truth is icky. And it's not just about keeping things nice. There's a real price that you're paying. And according to research on self-discrepancy theory, there is a gap between who you are and who you are pretending to be. And that very gap creates a tension that messes with your emotional well-being. So sugarcoating isn't just you not being real, it's not only being manipulative, it messes with your emotional well-being. So over time, this very tension can build up into resentment. And these resentments poison relationships and they poison you from the inside out. So you thinking you're avoiding conflict by staying polite is one thing, but in reality, it's also eroding trust and it builds resentment. And the antidote to this is authenticity, because when I'm authentic with you and I'm doing this on a constantly basis with a lot of consistency, that will be build trust between the two of us. It will be not only build trust, but also intimacy. And sugarcoating, on the other side, does the opposite. And it doesn't just stop at emotional damage. Studies have shown that when you are bottling up your emotions, when you just don't say what you want to say and you suppress your very truth, that can actually lead to physical problems and ailments. So, physical problems would be, for example, increased stress levels like cortisol, chronic illnesses, or a weakened immune system. And Dr. Gabor Mate, one of my mentors, I studied under him, says that chronic stress from emotional suppression can lead to conditions like autoimmune disorders, that I can say, autoimmune disorders and heart disease. So, sugarcoating is a gateway into chronic disease, into a weakened immune system, and it's just emotionally, absolutely, it just messes with you emotionally. So, avoiding tough conversation is not the way how you want to live your life and you want to live the best life. So, put your emotional and physical health at the absolute priority, and I know you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I have podcast episodes how to hold tough conversations. If you need any help or advice with this, just let me know, reach out. Alrighty, so what are the rewards of being authentic or unapologetic real? So let's turn the page and go to the good stuff. When you stop being nice and polite, you open all doors of all kinds of magic. First of all, you free up so much energy, and instead of constantly worrying about what others think, you can finally live in your alignment with your values. And that has been the biggest game changer for me, and I tell this every client that living in alignment with your core values is absolutely a must. So if you wonder what values are or what your values are, go Google and find your core values. I have yet to meet a client starting with me who knows their core values by heart. And every of my clients know their core values by heart because it is that important. You can never be authentic if you don't know what is important to you. And a core value is something that if I take that out of your life will feel actually off. And you feeling very often not well or something is missing because you're not sure what actually is a priority for you. So go check core values, find your core values, and find where you are living against your core values. I always suggest finding 3 to 5 core values and really make sure that these are not these nice to have values, but the ones that are really, really important in your life. So again, if they are missing, then your life would be off. And your core values and living in alignment to them is where authentic living is actually kicking in. And authenticity is super, super magnetic. And I have seen research that proves that authenticity really makes you more attractive. It makes you charismatic, it makes you trustworthy, And it is just amazing. If you are among people where you feel like, wow, they are so themselves and they have magic around them, that is when they are really true and in alignment with themselves. And again, in a world where I feel the world is full of people pleasing and masks. So being real is such a breath of fresh air. That is why I'm going to keep preaching about authenticity until I'm old in my gray in my face. Okay, so I also want to leave you with a few practical tips, like how I started to, speaking my truth and without being bulldozing, like without bulldozing over people. So, one of the first steps that I did in my authenticity journey was recognizing the fear. So, every time I felt the urge to hold back, I either were able to pause and notice that discomfort, or I did it in hindsight, where I replayed that social situation and really went to where was this, where I had this urge to hold back, and where I held back then in the end of the day. What discomfort was it? And I really reframed it in a way to say that this discomfort is my brain just trying to protect me. It's trying to signal to me, oh, there's something happening here. There might be a danger. And then I knew, okay, there's actually no danger here. It's just, because the worst case scenario is that I say something that someone doesn't like, and then we can either talk about it, or if that person just, doesn't want to talk about it, then I know we might not be in alignment to be in a relationship. Because in my world, if you refuse to speak about something to me, and that's not the same as if you would need more time, then I know that we are not meant to be together. Because in my world, we can speak about everything, even the hard stuff. So again, recognize that fear and know that you are not in danger. You are growing, but not in danger. Another tip is to start small. So you don't have to dive headfirst into the biggest conflicts in your life. Just start with low stakes situations. So, for example, if your friend suggests a restaurant, say that you don't like that restaurant or suggest a different restaurant. Just be honest. And those are small things, but very often we just go along with it, even though we might prefer something else or we might want to try a different kind of food. And the more you practice in small moments, the more natural it will also feel when it really matters for bigger conflict moments. Another important thing that I have to mention over and over again is speaking your truth doesn't mean you are being harsh, okay? You can be clear, not cruel. So it's about being honest while also still being kind, while also being compassionate, and also assessing if it's the right moment to also say this very thing that you want to say. And instead, for example, of saying, hey, you are selfish, you can actually say something like, I feel hurt when my needs aren't considered. This way, I take the you out of it. You don't get into defense because I state something that is true to me and has nothing, like, there is no you in my sentence when I say I feel hurt when my needs aren't considered. And that is where you are, like, when I tell you this, you are way more able to hear that I'm hurt and that my needs are not considered. So be always, I know when we are in conflicts or we have a fight with our romantic partner, we always say, oh, you do this or you make me feel. But that's a guarantee where we always fall into an argument and arguing about something that's actually, not bringing you the solution. So make sure you are being clear. Take the you out of these sentences, so to speak, and say it clear and not in a cruel way. Because if I accuse you of you were being selfish, that's actually not compassionate. That's also not being kind. And then the last part that I want to tell you is that, and that has been a golden rule in my life, and that is detach from the outcome. You cannot control how people react to your truth, and that's okay. Learn to let go of it, and the win is always in staying true to yourself and not controlling how people will receive you. So, and I will end this podcast episode today with boundaries, because I think before we wrap up, boundaries are so important when it comes to this whole topic of being authentic over politeness. So, authenticity and boundaries obviously are best friends, BFFs. When you set clear boundaries, you are teaching people what's okay and what's not. And here's a little secret I tell you: people will respect you 10 times more when you respect yourself enough and be real and authentic about your needs, instead of just trying to be nice, trying to be polite, not being a burden. That thing of like, I don't want to be a burden to someone is something I have cleared out in my clients over and over again, because you trying not to be a burden just means you're not being real. Because in the end of the day, we are not being burdens to other people, and if we are, that can also mean that these are not the right people. And I know setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, but know that boundaries are not barriers. They are just pathways to way deeper connections. And I love one thing about boundaries the most, which is they let the right people in and keep the wrong ones out. Because, when you respect your own truth, others will follow suit, and the ones who aren't your people. Alrighty, my love. So that was it for this week's episode, and I hope that was something that you needed to hear today. Some good reminders here and there, because I do believe that it is so important to learn to become more authentic and ditch this politeness, where politeness is actually just killing you. It's literally killing your soul. So if this episode hit home for you, make sure to subscribe to the I Do Me podcast, because next week we are diving into another fancy, amazing topic. And yeah, I can't wait to meet you next week. Remember, being real is your superpower. Until next time, stay unapologetically you. Love you so much, and see you next week.